On October 22nd, 1982, First Blood, the first movie of the Rambo franchise, was released. And on a budget of $15 million, the movie drew in at the box office over $125 million. Needless to say, the movie was a very big success. The movie was so popular that it spawned a sequel in 1985, Rambo First Blood Part 2. That movie being even more popular, spawning a cartoon series in 1986, short-lived although, called Rambo, The Force of Freedom. By 1988, Rambo 3 hit theaters. We will not hear anything about Rambo until 2008's Rambo. Simply Rambo. And right around the corner on September 20th of 2019, Rambo Last Blood will be hitting theaters. Now, from 2013 to 2015, NECA released a series of 5 Rambo figures, all based on different versions of the title character, with 2 being based off of his appearance in First Blood, 1 based on his appearance in Rambo First Blood Part 2, 1 that was an homage to the Nintendo Entertainment System video game, and 1 that was a homage to the Force of Freedom toy line that was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. And this year, with no announcements of new figures from NECA for Rambo, needless to say, I'm a little disappointed that I'm not hearing of new figures coming out since 2015. So I figured what I'd do instead, I would give my top 10 characters I would like to see NECA make in their action figure format. Everybody, I am Crystal Clear 101. Welcome back to the channel. I figure for something just a little bit different, I figure I would make myself my first top 10 video. I know top 10 videos are lazy and for the most part unoriginal, but this is something I've honestly been thinking about for some time. And again, since NECA has not announced any new Rambo figures since 2015, and Rambo Last Blood is literally right around the corner, I figure I would give my thoughts, my ideas on characters that I think would make for good Rambo figures, especially if anyone's wanting to add to a Rambo collection. Now, I know that I know NECA has a very specific and strict process they go through as far as getting likenesses, licensing rights, and all of that for characters from different movies, TV shows, video games, etc. But provided that they were able to provided they were able to do everything and be able to actually get these characters, these are my picks for the top 10 Rambo characters I would love to see NECA make in action figure format. I am not going to be doing in any particular order. The only order I am going to be going in is from first movie to last movie. In this case, I am going to be starting with the first movie in the series, First Blood. Oh, and before I forget, before I actually start with the first one, let me go ahead and say that the way I selected my top 10 characters was by actually watching each individual movie all the way through and seeing which ones I think would actually be cool to see in action figure format. And the reason I'm going with 10 is the simple fact that if I listed every single one I'd like to see, not only would this video be a lot longer, but it'd be probably closer to 35 or 40 characters. Now, with that being out of the way, let's go ahead and start off with the first one from First Blood. First one up. Now, this may come as a surprise, but there is a version of Rambo they have not, that I would love to see NECA do. Yes, we already have two different versions of Rambo from First Blood. However, this one, I think would actually look really nice. This would actually be a fairly cool version to have. And it would be, and I will be providing pictures up here in this corner, I would like to see Rambo as he first appeared on screen in First Blood, with him wearing his M65 field jacket with that flag right here over his breast right here. I would love, and that American flag on the shoulder, him carrying that duffel bag. I just think that would be a really good looking version to have. And on top of that, bearing in mind what I am also considering this, considering with the Alien 3 Ripley, that you technically got two different versions of that character just by swapping out the arms. You could do the same thing with this version of Rambo, where you could have an alternate pair of bare arms. The default are the sleeves from the field jacket. Remove those, remove the field jacket. He's got the regular gray t-shirt underneath. Just swap out his bare arms into that. You'd also have him conceal that knife in the sheath underneath the field jacket. I mean, it would just be a very cool version, and you'd switch between those two different versions of Rambo. That's the first one I think would actually look really cool. Second one, also from First Blood, Sheriff Teasel. Needless to say, he was the main antagonist of the movie. And he was also the main one that really pushed Rambo into doing what he ended up doing. Now, just like with him, you could have him with an alternate pair of arms. His default would be the heavy coat that you see him wear at the beginning of the movie. He could have a removable hat. You could have him with a few different accessories. I mean, you didn't basically have a 2-in-1. You'd have a couple of different ways you could display Sheriff Teasel. But having your main antagonist alongside with your main hero, I think to me just makes the most sense. But that's one I would actually really like to see, is Sheriff Teasel. I do have an honorable mention for First Blood. My honorable mention is Art Galt. I didn't choose him for the simple fact that he didn't have as big of a part in this movie, and on top of that, he gets killed off fairly quickly early on in the movie. Granted, he's the one who really pushes Rambo over the edge, and he's the one who shows the brutality of some of the law enforcement from that small town. But ultimately, it's just a simple fact that he didn't have that big of a part in the entire grand scheme of things in the movie. Now, with that being said, let's move on to Rambo First Blood Part 2. Now, my first pick from Rambo First Blood Part 2 would be Cobal. Cobal is the first character I would pick from Rambo First Blood Part 2, because that is the character that Rambo was to meet up with after being airdropped back into Vietnam. Now, and she also sort of acts as kind of a love interest for Rambo in the movie. The way I see it, there can be one of two versions of the character done. I would be fine with either one. The first version being her first appearance, where she's wearing the typical Vietnam style black pajamas along with the hat, or the disguise that she puts on when she goes to break Rambo out of that POW camp, where she's wearing the red dress. She has that suppressed Mac 10 or Mac 11. I can't remember which model it was. I think it was a Mac 11. But either way, that would be a really good one. I mean, to me, it would really go along with the Rambo figure that's already out there. On top of that, I mean, she was a very memorable character. I thought she was a wonderful character. Her only flaw being that she got killed off. That was it. That's up from Rambo First Blood Part 2. My next pick would be Lieutenant Colonel Petoskey. Lieutenant Colonel Petoskey, being a Soviet commander, he was the main physical antagonist that Rambo had to contend with. Now, I thought he was actually a rather fun... I thought he was a fun character, a fun villain from the second movie. Just have him in his regular uniform. You first see him in the black combat boots. I believe it was a light blue beret. I can't remember right at the moment. But just to have your main antagonist right next to the First Blood Part 2 Rambo, to me that would actually look rather good. Only accessory I'd see putting with him might be the helicopter, the helmet he wears when he's flying his high-end helicopter. And my last pick for Rambo First Blood Part 2 would be Colonel Trautman. Yes, I know that Colonel Trautman, I should have picked him for First Blood. However, I just really liked the way he looked in First Blood Part 2 when he was wearing the Vietnam-era combat fatigues. The fact that it showed him not in a dress uniform, but in his combat uniform that he wore back in Vietnam. And the fact that he was back, well, in country, you may as well say. And the fact that he was willing to wear his combat fatigues when he went out to try and get Rambo. I mean, that to me just looks really sharp. To me, I personally just like the combat fatigue look. Pardon me. Better than I do the dress uniform. And on top of that, I think the combat uniform version would just look like it would fit in better than the dress uniform version. Especially considering you guys show wrinkles throughout the uniform, just made it look more natural. I just think that would look good. And now, let's go on to the honorable mention for First Blood Part 2. And that would be Murdoch. I didn't go with Murdoch in this one because I just didn't think he would have been overall as interesting a character. I mean, if you think about it, he really is your true main antagonist for Rambo. Considering he was the one who gave the order to just leave him out there just because he had an American POW, because he found proof of American POWs still being held in Vietnam. If you think about it from that perspective, he is your real antagonist. However, I just didn't think he would have been as interesting. You might have a different opinion about that, but for me, I just didn't see him being as interesting as, say, Petoskey from this movie. But still, I thought, for me, if I had to pick a fourth character from this movie, I probably would have picked Murdoch. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to Rambo 3. And now we're on to Rambo 3. Now, my first pick is, this may seem a bit redundant, but my first pick would be Rambo himself. He does appear a little bit different than he did in First Blood Part 2. However, the version I am thinking of is the one I am calling Escape to Pakistan, towards the end of the movie. Reason being is a simple fact that not only do I see this as the version of Rambo from this movie, and on top of that, it's the different accessories that you could put with him. Just the different ways that you can display the character. considering that within I can't remember if it's a 15-20 minute period of the movie, you see him toting an SVD Dragunov. You see him tote Sergeant Korov's AK. You see him with his bow and arrow. I mean, you just see him with a variety of different weapons. I mean, it's just different ways that you could display this particular version of Rambo. And on top of that, really your main physical difference, honestly, would be instead of having the red bandana, he's got a black bandana. But still, I think that would be a very cool version to have. My next pick from Rambo 3 would be Colonel Trautman. Yes, I picked him in First Blood Part 2, but this version of him, I think, would also be a very interesting figure to have. Because not only is he, oh, how can I put it, a bit more, I don't want to say dirty, but he's not as clean as you see him in First Blood and in the second movie. He looks like he's actually out in the nitty-gritty. Granted, he was captured, tortured, and all that. But just the fact that he's actually wearing radio, I guess you call it, right? I guess you can call it fatigues. The simple fact that he's actually out in the thick of it. On top of that, you can have him armed with, I believe it's an AMD 63 that he's carrying towards the end of the movie. That's the version I am thinking of. Just like with Rambo, what I would call Escape to Pakistan. Considering that was the part where you really got to see him in action, where you really got to see him just kick rear in that movie. And on top of that, Trautman overall is a character that really didn't get a whole lot of attention. Matter of fact, only Trautman figure that I'm at present aware of was the one figure of him that was released for the Force of Freedom back in 1986. So having a second Trautman on this list to me, I don't particularly see a problem with it. Could have I picked another character? Yes, I could have. But that was the one to me that just really stood out to me. And my third and final pick for Rambo 3 would be Colonel Zyson. Just like with Petoskey, Zyson is your main antagonist in Rambo 3. Unlike First Blood Part 2, he is the only antagonist in this particular, in Rambo 3. The way I see it, just have him in his, I guess it's his dress uniform that you see him in the Soviet fort. You pair him with an AK, you pair him with the PM63 machine pistol. There's a few accessories you could pair him with. And just like with Petoskey, you could have the main antagonist paired up with the Rambo and with Colonel Trautman, especially with Colonel Trautman. Only its other accessory I can think of might be his pilot's helmet, if you wanted to put that with him. But I just think he'd be a fairly cool one. And my pick for the honorable mention for Rambo 3 is, and this may come as a surprise to some of you, but my pick is Stick Fighter. I am not making the name up. That's literally his name in the description. Stick Fighter being the one at the very beginning of Rambo 3 who you see Rambo fighting with the pair of sticks. Yeah, he was a cool character. He seemed like he'd be a real interesting character. The only thing was he just played a very, very minor part in the overall arc of the movie. Honestly, it was very minor. And on top of that, he was on screen for like, what, less than 2 minutes? Maybe less than 3 minutes, if that. And the main thing he really contributed was showing that Rambo was a good guy in the end. But, I mean, if he was on screen considerably longer than that, I probably would have picked him. But, that's why I didn't went with him in my choices. And now let's get to 2008's Rambo. And now we're at 2008's Rambo. We've gone through 8 characters. Now let's go ahead and get to the last 2. Now, my first pick from this movie would be Schoolboy. Schoolboy being the sniper of the group of mercenaries that was helped to rescue the missionaries. Now, I thought he was the single coolest of the missionaries. Not only was he probably the calmest one of the bunch, but he was also the one toting a freaking Barrett 50 cal sniper rifle. The way I see it, there's 2 versions that could be done. One is what I like to refer to as the 50 cal rampage at the end of the movie. It's where you really see him go to work with his 50 cal. Just have him with a boonie hat, just have him with his sniper rifle. And as far as I'm concerned, done deal. That's all you need. The other version is where he's helping assist the missionaries, not missionaries, he was helping the mercenaries and Rambo rescue some of the missionaries from the camp. And in that version, he has a poncho, just put a sound suppressor, or silencer if you want to call it that, on his Barrett 50 cal, and it makes for another very interesting version of Schoolboy. And my last pick from Rambo would have to be, and just because I found him to be the most entertaining, is Lewis. Lewis being the old school, no nonsense SAS guy. He was also the one toting around a shotgun. Now, the way I see it, the 2 versions that could be done. The first one, which I call the boat ride, where we first see him. The other one, during the 50 cal rampage scene. Excuse me there. Where you see him, not only is his leg wounded, but you also see him take an AK, start taking out some of the Burmese soldiers that are there. But I think that version would just look, either one of those versions would just look really cool. On top of that, I just thought the character himself was entertaining. So pair him right next to Schoolboy, you have honestly 2 of the best, not only the best mercenaries, but probably some of the best secondary characters from the 2008 Rambo film. Now, as far as my honorable mention for the 2008 Rambo movie, it's not so much a character. Well, it does have a character. It is a set that I would be thinking of. That set would be the Burmese Jeep with the mounted 50 cal on the back. Specifically, what I call the 50 cal rampage scene, where Rambo just, not only does he take out the 2 Burmese soldiers that are operating said Burmese Jeep, but he turns the 50 cal on the Burmese soldiers that are getting ready to kill both the mercenaries and the missionaries. It is arguably from the best scene from the 2008 Rambo movie, the very best scene from the entire movie. Just have the Jeep with the 50 cal, have Rambo right behind it, and honestly, that would make for a very very nice display piece, a nice centerpiece for a Rambo collection. I mean, is it from the best Rambo movie of the franchise? Not really. But you gotta admit, it would actually look really, really cool in a Rambo collection to have that. And that does it for my top 10 picks from the 4 Rambo movies that are currently out. Now, if you are a fan of Rambo, be sure to comment down below which one is your favorite of the Rambo movies that are currently out. And on top of that, if you have any disagreements, I want you to tell me which characters you would prefer. I would love to hear which characters you would like to see from any of the Rambo movies. If there's any that you would change, any that you would stick with that I have said, be sure to tell me in the comment section right down below. And as always, be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Crystal Clear 101 out.